Hi, I'm Will Cliff, Head of Elite Sport at Franklyn. Welcome to our Behind the Curtains podcast. Right lads, we're going to flip things on its head a little bit. You're going to take the questions. So for this part, I'd like to introduce Franklyn founder, Chief Executive and Chartered Financial Planner, Andy Chatterton.
So thank you for joining us, Andrew and everyone. This is the chat with Chatterton. So Andy, when players hear financial planning, do they think, oh no, I've got another meeting with Andy? Or what does it actually mean for someone with a short career?
Well, this is really, really weird. Been interviewed by two world-class sports guys, but also two existing clients. It's the first ever. So.
Thank you for having us.
Well, you know, I didn't have a choice, did I? I think, to be fair, people can't wait to have a 3 to 4 hour discussion with me where they say nothing and I lecture them. But no, I think look, part of giving really good financial planning advice, and particularly to all clients, but particularly young sports professionals, is we've got to make it enjoyable. We've got to give you it's got to be educational, because if it's not, you go, it's very easy to give an answer to a question and then the answer quite often gets dismissed. So giving the context to the answer, I think, is really important. And my style of doing that means it does take, as you know, quite a bit of time. But you tell me, I mean, do you prefer that, or do you prefer a snappy answer? Because I'll change.
No, I enjoy it. You always come out feeling more empowered with the knowledge. And so you lead us on to the next point in terms of, like, as young professionals.
Yeah.
What should they focus on first?
Yeah, young sports professionals, I think there's always a challenge as an advisor, because the young sports professional, they wanna focus on the really exciting stuff, and actually that's the wrong thing to focus on. And I suppose I might come from, I want to be in a match when we're playing, but you've got to do the hard work first. And the hard work is to, make sure, one, you can manage your cash flow, because, you turn 18, 19, 20, you're on, money that your peers are not earning. And of course, you then quite often want to aspire to buy something that maybe a more senior player has got. And the trap there is then, what players can and are doing is getting stuff on credit. And of course, then you start getting on credit when really you shouldn't be doing that. Then that is your cash flow, and you're paying 2-3 times over for that watch or that car. Or you get a really nice car and the car insurance is through the roof, which actually just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Just to wait a little bit of time. So I think the cash flow is important, but in tune with that is making sure that you're insured. Making sure you're protected properly, because again, it's very challenging for us, but help young sports guys understand, and ladies understand, you're a business. You are a business. You just happen to have a very bespoke business. And within that business, we need to make sure that whatever happens outside your control, you get the returns that you should get.
Yeah.
And that's insurance. And then he's getting the right stuff. And he's a bit dry, as you know, but it really is important. And then he gives you the confidence, there's a springboard to move on to some of the more exciting things. So that's always the hardest part of that initial discussion, really.
I was going to say something I feel personally pretty strongly about, and I know you do, in terms of that just having someone you can trust to help you make those decisions, but also kind of even reading the questions here, when you are younger and you are opened up to these sorts of opportunities, and it can be quite scary for young guys coming through, can't it?
Yeah, it can,
so
absolutely.
To have someone like you guys, and I know you've been brilliant as far as, I know we joke about it, but giving the full picture before you jump into something, I think you're very good at.
Yeah, thank you. Keep talking.
Sorry, there's a question within that, in terms of, it can be scary though for young lads, can't it?
Yeah,
but I think you guys do a great job, really, don't you?
Yeah, well, it's not just, it's the team, and we've got, Jock, Liam, and the other guys, Jock and Liam are at the training ground all the time, and we try and, as you know, we try and get involved with you just from a relationship perspective, away from the office, away from finances, and we always like the away trip we get invited to, which I think helps bond that relationship. And we're normal people, and I think it's just a case of, I think quite often, people who work in our profession, and I know an awful lot of them, and you know, it's really, we need to be approachable, and we need to be able to, we need to have a bit of fun with you, but we also need to tell you what you need to hear, and not be scared to do that. And I think a lot of people in our profession, they tend to want to tell people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. And I always say the best advice you can ever get is no surprises. We never want to be in a situation in 3, 4, 5 years' time where you say, well, why didn't you tell me that? Why didn't you make that clear to me?
Yeah.
So getting all that sometimes, news you may not want to hear, particularly as a younger person, particularly, we really want to do that. So you have no surprises, get a great foundation. And then you mentioned in your podcast earlier, with Will, the power of steady, high quality returns, the compound effect, doing the right things, doing the basic things regularly on a consistent basis is critical. And as you both know, I put a little bit of sport in my time, and
Still
do. But it's a different discipline, of course, but the principles are always different, whether you're playing badminton at high level or any other sport. You mentioned before about, I think you actually said, I disagree with what you said before, it doesn't necessarily need any talent, for that consistency and maybe doing those simple things. I actually think is one of the biggest talents you can have as a sports person, is actually doing the basics really well, consistently. And the word I would use is resilience. So, Ben, when you talked about when Eddie was in charge of England and you were doing those things all the time, well, what is really important is what that has given you is resilience for those 4 years, because you don't know what's going to happen who the next coach is. I think I have a different view, the same view, but the fact you keep doing it, that is an absolute skill beyond belief. And when I talk to young financial planners now, because I train most of the guys who join Franklyn, one of the key things is hard work is a talent, consistency is a talent, and I think some people think you've got to be mega talented to be talented. I don't actually agree with that. I mean, if you've got that, it can make you world class. But that does make things a lot easier. But there's so many people I know in different sports who've got incredible talent, but have never really achieved much in their sport because they just really didn't apply themselves. And I think both you're an epitome of that, which is amazing. So it's great to work with you both.
What about Morton? Was he?
Well, Morton was
Combination.
Well,
he's once in a generation.
Well, you have to plunge in. Absolutely, he is. And you talk about my age. I'm 53. So when I was a kid, sort of in my teenage years, you'd watch this guy win everything. And I think if you look at his track record and what he's won basically everything. And we're lucky enough now that he's director of Badminton England. So he's in charge of what happens for the English badminton team, which is brilliant. And he's a legend, as you both know.
We do.
And you both keep taking the mickey out of me.
He was creepy.
I can't really argue with you.
I was trying to tell her not to look at you. Red. You're so red now. Leads us on to fair. I feel like this question is directed at me in terms of I keep messaging you about obviously Bitcoin, that kind of stuff. How's kind of we talked about Sam Hill earlier as well with the silver, and obviously in the dressing room, especially in professional sport, there's a lot of free time. You get conversations do appear about obviously investments. How's kind of like those type of investments different to a kind of properly managed portfolio?
Yeah, I think you raise a really important point, particularly for sports professionals. You guys get approached, not just you two, but young professionals across all disciplines get approached by businesses, quite often pre-revenue businesses.
The truth.
Yeah, and businesses in their early years. Never mind investments, which sound really sexy. When you think, God, I can get, 1,000% return in a year, and you're hearing people in the changing room saying these things, or whether it's a really nice watch and you buy that Rolex, you'll double or triple your money in 2 years. And whilst we can't give advice on whether you should or you shouldn't, what we can do is share experience, not just because of our profession, but obviously, being a business person ourselves, myself, share with you, the things you should be looking out for, the questions to ask when you've got an investment deck, the questions that these people who are punting these opportunities around, what you should be asking them. And actually, you've seen, sometimes the answers can be quite weak, or the information that comes back doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And of course, and they're actually, when you look at the investment deck, in many cases, they're really quite exciting. You think, actually, I can see the potential in this, and this could go massive. But we're here to keep you safe. So it is a challenge, and trying to keep the balance of saying, no, you shouldn't do these things, because we're not here to say you should or you shouldn't. We're here to keep you safe and go, if you're going to do it, these are things you really need to be aware of. Look out for, we can ask you these questions for you. Let's understand, let's scratch under the surface. Ultimately, people's financial decisions should be their decisions. We're here to give advice, and that's holistic advice. And, one of the things I'm disappointed with many times, we come across young financial advisors, all they actually do have is a financial product, which is something that financial advisor can sell.
Yeah.
So you end up with loads of stuff that actually isn't necessarily the right thing. So I think, but that's where that long-term relationship comes into. And what's great about, my tenure, and I've got some professional sports people I've worked with now for, approaching 19, 20 years. And they've long retired. But of course, they've seen the value of what's happened in those early years.
Yeah.
And of course, what I spend in my long meetings with you is educate you the benefit of you spending that time with me. So you can see, you can start to see what the outcome actually looks like in that
To be fair, I think that was one of the first things we came away from that first meeting was actually, I think we were previously with a financial advisor who you'd go with them with an opportunity and they just beat it down straight away, no, housing, no. Whereas I think what I enjoyed from the first meeting was actually let's explore it, let's find answers to it. If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, well, at least we've explored the option,
exactly.
Which is what I enjoyed.
Yeah, exactly.
And you allowed me to buy watches, which is nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think that sums it up all perfectly. I know we joke about it, but we do really appreciate your time and how much time you spend with us and the effort you spend with us and I guess everyone. So yeah, that's the chat with Chatterton.
Great.
And
thanks, guys.
Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you both too. Cheers.